Hey everyone, today we're doing something a little different. We're not just looking at some system, we're basically exploring the architectural plans for an entire digital city, its economy, its rules, everything, all designed from the ground up. Let's get into how Codatta's economic engine is built. So let me ask you this, just think about it for a sec. If you had to design a whole new digital economy right from scratch, how would you even begin to make it fair and functional and secure for everyone involved? It's a massive, massive challenge, right? Well, that's the exact puzzle this Codatta blueprint is trying to solve. Okay, so here's the game plan for our tour. First, we're going to take a look at the overall blueprint of this digital city. Then, we'll head over to what you could call its city hall to check out the rules. After that, we'll follow the money, see how it flows. Then we'll check out the city's borders, see how it connects to the rest of the world. And finally, we'll wrap up with the big picture, why any of this matters. All right, let's dive right in. Welcome to Codatta's economy, and I want you to try and forget about lines of code for a minute. Instead, think of this as the master plan, the architectural blueprint for a brand new kind of digital city.
So at its very heart, this whole framework, it's not just a rule book, it's a blueprint for an economy that can regulate itself. That's the key. The whole thing is designed just like a really well-planned city with these built-in rules to keep it secure, fair, and healthy for the long haul.
Okay, on to part two. Every city has to have laws, right? A way to govern itself. So let's head over to Codatta's version of City Hall and figure out the rules of the game. In this system, they call them policy levers. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because in this city, the laws aren't just written down in some old book and forgotten. They're not set in stone. They're these dynamic, adjustable policy levers that let the entire system constantly tweak itself to stay balanced and running smoothly. And here they are. These are the actual levers. You can think of royalty rate bands like, say, the city's property tax system. The default splits, those are kind of like standard business partnership agreements. Access rules, totally like zoning laws for different neighborhoods. And then staking and task requirements, that's like getting your business licenses and permits. Every single one is a tool to keep the city's economy humming. Okay. Let's talk about staking for a second, because this one is super important. The easiest way to think about it, it's just a security deposit. Simple as that. If you want to participate, to do business in this digital city, you have to put some of the local currency on the line. It proves you're serious, that you have skin in the game, and, well, it makes you think twice before breaking any rules. So, what happens if you do break the rules? Well, that's where this thing called slashing comes into play. If someone acts maliciously, that security deposit they put down, poof, it could be taken away, partially or even all of it. It's a really strong automated penalty that helps keep everyone honest. All right, so we've seen the law book. Now for the fun part. Let's follow the money. We're diving into part 3, checking out the city's treasury and its economic engine to see how the whole thing is actually powered. You know, any city needs money to operate, right? To pay for things. Codatta's economy runs on something called token sinks. Yeah, I know, it's a pretty technical term, but don't worry about that. Just think of them as all the different ways the city collects revenue automatically, like digital tolls, taxes, and fees. They serve a double purpose. They stop people from spamming the system, and they pay for all the public services. And this chart breaks it down perfectly. You've got submission gas. Think of that like paying for a stamp so you don't get a million pieces of junk mail. That task launch deposit is kind of like putting a deposit down to rent a community center. Then you have fees for staking, for trades, for using the marketplace. Each one is a tiny little transaction, but together they all fuel the security and health of the entire system. So what kind of money are we talking about here? Well, the city actually uses two different currencies. First, there's the native token XNY. That's like the local currency, you know? It's what you use for all the day-to-day stuff inside the city, paying fees, staking, governance. But for trading with the outside world, like paying out royalties, it uses stablecoins. That's more like using a global currency, like the US dollar, to make sure commerce is stable and predictable.
Let me walk you through a quick example so this really clicks. Let's say you want to launch a task on the network. First, you put down a deposit in XNY. This basically reserves your spot, kind of like booking a public park for an event. It makes sure there's enough space for you. And here's the really cool part. As soon as your task is completed successfully, you get your deposit back. It's just a really smart way to make sure resources are used fairly.
So where does all this money actually go? This is so important. It doesn't end up in some CEO's pocket. Nope. It all flows into a public city treasury. And from there, it gets invested right back into the city itself.
We're talking security audits to keep the city safe, grants for developers building new things, bounties for improving quality. It's all about maintaining and upgrading the public infrastructure for everyone.
Okay, so we have rules, we have a functioning economy, but a great city can't be an island, right? It has to connect to the outside world. So for part 4, we're heading to the city limits. Let's check out Codatta's ports, bridges, and highways and see how it connects to everything else.
And the main thing to get here is that Codatta is absolutely not designed to be a walled garden. The whole thing is built for connection. The infrastructure is there specifically to let it talk, interact, and trade with all sorts of other digital ecosystems out there.
And this is how it does it. Those API connectors, think of them as the city's bustling shipping ports, constantly moving data and tasks in and out. The on-chain hooks, those are like high-security bridges, only allowing trusted financial transactions to cross. And the identity adapters, that's basically passport control. It lets people from other ecosystems bring their credentials and reputation with them. It's all about being open, but in a very secure way.
All right, let's pull back and look at the big picture. For our last section, let's tie all of this together. Why does any of this blueprint matter? What's the grand vision here?
When you boil it all down, what we're looking at is an attempt to build something, well, kind of radical. It's a blueprint for a decentralized system that can pay for itself, protect itself, and govern itself, all without any single company or boss in charge. It's this incredibly ambitious attempt to build a digital city that can genuinely run on its own, forever.
And this whole philosophy really comes down to this one phrase: protocol first and open. What that means is the rules, the protocol, come first. They're the law of the land, and they're totally open and transparent for everyone to see. It's a huge shift from having a private company in control to having something more like a public constitution for a digital nation. And that really brings us to the final, massive question. When you design an entire economy like this, with all these interlocking rules, these clever incentives, and these open connections, are you looking at the future of how we govern ourselves online? Or is this just one grand, unbelievably fascinating experiment? I'll leave you to think about that. Thanks for coming on this tour with me.